Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Masechtas Gittin Daf Samach Hey. We are going to begin on Samach Hey Amud Al, 4 lines from the top with the word Mason. So we're going to pose a question. We were learning that when it comes to a person who is young enough that can distinguish between a rock and an egois, a nut, that they will either discard it or take it, that will be enough for them to be Zoichel Atzmo. However, they certainly are not old enough to be Zoichel Acherim. However, when it comes to being a little bit more mature, of a Chefetz Machziro Acher Shah, that they would actually give back an object. So, on one opinion, says that not only is Zoichel La'atzmo, but even La'acherim. However, that's actually Machlokas. Some hold that only La'atzmo and still not La'acherim. So, the Gemara asks a question. Meisev Rav Avya. Marimin al Meiser Sheni. A person can engage in trickery regarding Meiser Sheni. We know that Meiser Sheni, on years 1, 2, 4, and 5 of the 7-year Shemitah cycle, those produce are brought to Yerushalayim to be eaten. It says Rashi, Livdoso b'loi chaimish. Now, if it's very heavy, so then instead of you taking those fruits directly to Yerushalayim, what you could do is you can be paided onto money. However, when you're paid a Meiser Sheni, the din is that you have to be Moisav Chaimish. You have to add an extra fifth. Says Rashi, She'adam Moisav Chaimish Kishapoides Meiser Sheni Shalo. There's a chiyuv to have to add an additional fifth. Veinu Moisav Chaimish al Shalacherim im Koinei Machaver. However, if let's say, for example, you were koine it from someone else, so then you do not have to add a fifth. So on this, the Gemara says the following: Ketzad Amar Adam Livnoi Uvitoi Hagadolim L'Avdol Shivchaso Ivrim. What you can do is you can turn to your children who are already older, or to an Eved or Shivcha or Jewish, and you can say, Pei Lechem Mois Halolu, take these monies, Upada Behem Meiser Sheni. And then with this money, I want you to be paida Meiser Sheni. Now, what is the chiddush? So it says in parentheses, V'chol b'chaimish, because you didn't do it yourself. So this is a way of being able to save having to do the extra fifth. And Rashi says, Dahavu lacherim l'gabe. V'hem smuchin al shulchano. They come to your table. They're independent. They're dependent on you. Because since you have this close relationship, they're going to end up giving it back to you anyway. So this is a way of being able to save the fifth. Now, Hai Shimcha Echidami. Idiasabes Cyrus, if this Shimcha, who is Jewish, she has 2 hairs, so my boy Gabe, what is she doing by you? She should be able to leave B'Simonim. Elav Deloy Asabes Cyrus. It must be that she's not that old. And nonetheless, we see that she could actually do kinyanim. Gemara says, it's only because we're talking about a din d'Rabbanan over here that we're lenient. The Amma Avriya Bizman Ika. So 1 second, you're talking about Bizman Azeh. So an Amma Avriya, Jewish slave, we don't have an Amma Avriya. So nowadays, Yovel is not Noyig, because the pasuk says you require Ish el Mishpachto Tashuvu. There's a requirement of Ish el Mishpachto Tashuvu. And therefore, because we don't have Yovel, so that whole din of Amavriya and Eved Ivri doesn't apply. Ella, so how do we understand this? It must be that there is Yovel, and we're talking about an Amahavriya, because that's what it says. So it must be during the time of Yovel. But the time of Yovel, why would we say it's a din d'Rabbanan? It's Ba'atzat Shenu Nakov d'Rabbanan. Because even when the Yovel is Noyig, if you have a pot which does not have a hole, it's not perforated, so it's not really getting its nutrients from Eretz Yisrael. So therefore we say it's only Mechuyim d'Rabbanan. And therefore that's specifically what we're talking about here. Amarava, Gimel Midos B'Katan. We say, actually there's 3 different times in which a Katan has certain levels of schus. So as we said before, after everyone holds that at least if he's old enough to be able to make this distinction between a rock and a nut, he can be zaycha of things for himself. Ukenegdan bekatana, when we're talking about a girl, it's miskadeshes lemeyun, that you could do miyun. She's miskadeshes to do miyun. Says Rashi, Chashavla yodas lishmar kedushaha. She's old enough to be able to guard her kedushin money. Umiskadeshes b'kedushi amo o acheha l'daita. So if she doesn't have a father, her father is able to marry off his daughter midiraisa katana. However, in the absence of a father, so then the mother or the daughter or the older brother can do it, which is kedusha d'Rabbanan. If she's mamashi yisayma, so then she can become herself l'miyun shesricha l'ma'in, that the kedushin is strong enough that she cannot just walk away from the marriage. She actually has to do something called miyun. Miyun. She can't leave without miyun, as the Gemara in the Yomi says, where Rashi quotes, if she's so young that she can't even guard her kedushin, that's nothing. You don't even need miyun. But since she does know, so therefore the din is that she is required to do miyun to be able to remove herself from this kedusha d'Rabbanan. The next stage is hapu'utos. Now, says question number 5. Me'eze gil havi mishalcha ve'enu choizeres and mekabelas gita fil shikichu avia me'eze gil choiletzes im havia simonim. So we're going to see here. So if you reach the age of a pu'utos, at that age, and Rashi says, quotes the Gemara in previously on Daf Nun Tes, Kibar Shis, Kibar Tamni, somewhere like 6 or 8. So somewhere in that ballpark, Mecha Mekach, their purchases work, Machar and Mecher, Metalton, who says Kadechayev, because they need to be able to live and to be able to buy things. When a Glitzman comes to Metalton. That when it comes to a katana, she's misgareshes with the kedusha of the father. What does that mean? Says Rashi, when she reaches this age, she can be mikabel to get herself. Let's say the father did kedusha, which is kedusha d'oraisa, and now the father died. So the din is kedushim in the Torah. Even though really we're talking about a kedusha d'oraisa, so how could she, as a katana, be makabelas her get? The din is once she's reached this age of pu'utos, she can do so. Hegiu onas nidarim, says Rashi, shana achas lefnei niraseha. The year before she becomes a naira, so that is called onas nidarim. Nidreihim neder, so she would make a neder, it's chal, vekdesh and hektish. And again, it's also by a boy. If he was makdish something, it works. Ukenegdan bekatana choyletzes, says Rashi, im havia simanim. Let's say she brought simanim, v'loyam rinan shumaninhu. It's not a shuma, it's not like some type of blemish or some type of wart, mole that hairs are coming out of. Of a kaidim azman azeh katani. Before this, she's a katana. Vein siman has siman. Even if she brings a siman, we say it's nothing. Ve'enu chaletzas. In that case, chalitza is not done. The ish kasu b'parsha b'makshin ish ish. The only time chalitza is done is if we're dealing with a man who's an ish, not a katan, and and it has to be an isha, not a katana. So she has to at least show these simanim. So that's and then it concludes. Regarding the sellings of the purchasings of the father, it's only once he reaches the age of 20, which is specifically referring to karka. That person has the status of being a katan until they're 20 years old regarding that. So the Gemara here says, question 5, Begil hapu'utos, like 6 and 8, misgareshes bekabelas atzma, even though her father did the kedushin, which is the kedusha d'oraisa, she can accept her own kedushin, her own get. And shanach lefnei norasel, a year before, choyletzes im havia simanim. She brings simanim. At that stage already, she can. We say that chalitza is necessary to be done. Question TB4: Katana shekibel avia ba kedushin umeis. If you have a katana who's makabel, her father's makabel kedushin, and he died, he miskareshes b'kabal's gita ba'atzma ba'oida katana. Does it work? So he says, "Kishagia lo'oinas pu'utais." When she reaches that age, mishimer says gita miskareshes b'kabelas atzma. So she could be mikabelas the get, and that will be a valid gerish, and that will be a valid divorce, even though she's still technically a katana. She's a katana, but nonetheless, she's old enough, mature enough So we say it works. Okay, let's see the next Mishnah. It says, Masnis Katana Sh'amra, if you have a Katana who says, Hiskabili Giti, so she's married, and she says, I want you, my shliach, to be a makabel get for me. I want you to be my shliach HaKabbalah. That the moment that you receive the get, I'm automatically divorced. Enu get shigi get liyada. It doesn't work that way. She doesn't have the capacity to be able to make a shliach like that, a shliach HaKabbalah. She's a katana. And therefore, the divorce will only be chal once she actually receives the get. Therefore, imrotza habal laksa yachsor. That means the husband can retract even though it was given over to the shliach. This shliach is not a shliach HaKabbalah, and therefore until it's given over to this girl, he has the ability to retract. In katan oisa shliach, because a katan, in this case katana, cannot make a shliach. Now the im armelo aviha, save his skabel lebiti gita. Let's say it said to him, her father, go and be makabel my daughter's get. So, in other words, she doesn't make the shliach HaKabbalah, but the father makes the shliach HaKabbalah, and he's able to be makabel his daughter's get. He could be a shliach HaKabbalah. He could be makabel the own get. So, in that situation, because it works, the husband cannot retract. In other words, once it's in that shliach's hands that the father appointed, that is a valid shliach HaKabbalah, and therefore she's divorced. If a person says, give this get to my wife, and he specifies b'makam ploini, in such a location, the naslo b'makam acher pasul, and they ended up giving it somewhere else, that doesn't work, because maybe he says, I was makbid, I said b'makam ploni, I wanted it in this particular place. So if you brought it, gave it to her somewhere else, it doesn't work. However, if he says, harihi b'makam ploni, she just happens to be over there, naslo b'makam acher kosher, even though she gives it to somewhere else, it's kosher. Because Rashi says, El Kamar Makam Sham Tim Sena. All he's doing is letting the shliach know that this is where she is. But he's not being specific, saying this is where I want you to give the get, and therefore it's kosher, even if it was given somewhere else. Continues the Mishnah. Isha Sha'amra. If you have a woman that says, Hiskabali Giti B'makam Ploini. Again, I want you to be makabel my get in a specific place. V'kibul b'makam acher pasul. In that case, it doesn't work. Rabbi Lezer machshir. We'll see the Gemara why. Rabbi Lezer holds that even though she was seemingly makbid in the location, nonetheless, Rabbi Lezer says it's good. Havi legiti b'makam ploini. Bring the get to such a place. And havi lo b'makam acher kosher. So everyone holds that that's certainly not an issue. Says the Gemara. Now, Rabbi Lezer, Maishna Reishna Dula Paul, Maishna Save the Pauling. Why does he not argue in the ratio when it comes to the husband that he's makbid on a place, it's not good. However, when it comes to the woman who's makbid on a place, it's still good. So Ehud, the Medayat Megarish, because when it comes to the man, he does it with his own consent. So Kapid, he's particular. Ehud, the Baal Karcha Miskareshes, Mar Makim Hilo. She is divorced against her will, which means she really can't create these terms, says Rashi. It's totally on the man. She's going to get divorced anyway. How does she know what the husband's thinking? Okay, next Mishnah. Says the Masnisin. So let's say in this case, this person is made into a shliach l'hoylacha. Shliach l'hoylacha has to physically bring the get to the woman. Therefore, even though the shliach has the get, so she's able to continue to eat truma. Let's say again she's married to a kohen and her parents are Yisrael. So the din is that she can still eat truma until she actually receives the get, because until that point she's still married to him. However, if hiskabele giti, if this person was made into a shliach kabbalah, so therefore the second it gets in that person's hands, that's it. She's divorced. Therefore, truma miyad. Immediately she can't eat truma, because we say that it's possible that this guy already got the get. Hiskabeli giti mamakam ploin. I want you to go and be makabel to get in a different location. So until she get this, so I want you to accept the get in Chicago, and you'll be my shliach kabbalah to get it in Chicago. So in that situation, we know that it takes a few hours to fly there. So therefore, we're going to say up until that point, she can eat truma. Rabbi Lezer oyser miyad. Rabbi says no, doesn't make a difference. She's oyser immediately. Says Rashi, mishapirish me'etzel. As soon as the shliach separates from her, that's it. Rabbi Lezer tamei, the machshir Because we said in the previous Mishnah that even if he's makabel it not in Chicago, let's say he just happens to find the husband right outside of the door right after he left this woman, demar makom hilo. The din is that it will be a good divorce. So Mishah Shapirish Milafaneha Asura Shema Matsu Chutz Le'ir V'Kibul Imenu. It's shaykh that he was makabel the get immediately if he chanced upon the husband right away. Says the Gemara. Now V'Gita Miyahavi. So we're saying that when it comes to these different statements, can she eat truma continue to eat truma until she gets it, or does she not have the ability to eat truma right away? But V'Gita Miyahavi. We say in either situation it's a good get. The question is, when is it a good get? We said if we're dealing with different locations, then it's not a get. We're talking about where they said, be makabel to get in the city Machasya, Mas Machasya. But by the way, sometimes you may encounter this person in Babel. This is what it's saying. You can accept the get anywhere. I don't really care. I'm not makbid at all as we continue Samachem and Beis. I just don't want it to be a get until you actually get to Masa Machasya. So therefore, it doesn't matter where you're makabel to get. You can get the get anywhere, but you have to bring it to Masa Machasya. So therefore, that was the reason why there was no kapeda on where the get was being accepted. The question just was, does that get now need to go to this other location? Immediately. So pshita dharmar makam hilo, right? We know this from the previous Mishnah that he can be makabel to get from the husband anywhere, not just the precise location where she mentioned. Well, tzricha the amrli where she said zila mizrach, go to the east. The east b'mizrach, that's where he is. Because Lamar, the shliach didn't listen. He went the other direction, went west. Mahudatema b'marev halese. So he's not over there. Kamashmon dilma bahadid ka'azol. Maybe while he goes there, megas gaius baby gita. Right? Maybe as Rash says, poigeyabo. Maybe he'll chance upon him and there'll be a get. So even though he went in a different direction than she said, but nonetheless it'll still be a get immediately. Also, similarly, when it comes to dinim of Erevin, the reverse says to Shliach Arevli b'tamarim, that I want to make an Erev. It says Rashi L'sof Alpayim Shel Tchum. So we're talking about Tchum Shabbos is 2,000 almos, but you could have food put, let's say, 1,000 almos away. So this way you'll be able to extend your walking place. That is my Makom Shvisa. So now I'll go Alpayim almos from there. But you specified dates. The Erev will be groigris. Instead, they used figs. Or be groigris Erev will be tomorrow. So you were specific exactly what the food should be, and they used something else. So Tani Chada, Erev Erev, Tani Idach, and Erev Erev. So we have this stira question. So Maraba Lukasha, Rabban Harbi Lazar. So there's an opinion that says it's good. One says it's not good. It's a machokas. How Rabban and Diabri Kapeda, how Rabbi Lazar, Diamar Marakam Hilo. It's the same thing as our Mishnah. That just like this is machokas, whether or not there's kapeda in a different location, so too there may be a kapeda when it comes to different foods. Rav Yosef Amar no, hava Rabbanan. Really, both are like the shita of the Rabbanan. And the Rabbanan who said that kapeda, that they're particular, so if that's the case, so then l'char should not be an Arab. Kan b'shalo, kan b'shal chaverai. One is his, one is his friend. So what does that mean? It says Rashi, hava Rabbanan. The inhu nami lo omer kapeda el gabi isha. Maybe only by a woman there's this issue of being particular where the get was received. The hasan nichle, the tizel, they should go to a particular place, la beduch dachrin, and nowhere else. However, v'hanach kan b'shaloi eruv eruv. When it comes to his own stuff, it's an Arab. Toloi ilchaslei. But skipping a few lines, the hachavadi kapedahu de begrigris the chavri leisle rishusa. You can't say it's your friends, right? It's your friends, just like you say it's your friend's figs, because you didn't get rishus. So over here, you can't say that it should work because it's not yours. Make a erev on a tower, on your tower, and instead he made the erev on a dovecot. But b'shavech v'erev lo b'migdol, the tani chad eruv erev, the tani idach ein eruv erev. So there we also have this machlokas or stira. B'hasam ma'ishlo v'shal chaver ika. Here you can't say it's your friend's tower, like you said it's your friend's figs, and you didn't get rishus. Here there's no din of being makbid. Says Rashi, the makbid mi makbid hahu chavre. Like who cares if it's put there or there? So Hasam Nami Ika Peri the Migdal Peri the Shaivach. It's not talking about the location, it's talking about the fruits that are found therein, and therefore it's really the same point of a Groigris versus Te'enim tomorrow. Next Mishnah. Says the Mishnah, a person specifies, write for me a get and give it to my wife, or Garshuha, divorce her, kisvu geres, write a letter, Yutinula, give it to her, hari el yichtav of yitnu. So all these l'shainais are clear that he has the intention of giving a get. However, if he says patruha, release her, parnasuha, sustain her, asula kanimus, treat her properly, asula karoi, deal with her properly, lo amar klum, in all those situations. The din is you did not say anything. Says Rashi, why? Because dilma loshen pater v'chayva. Maybe it's just regarding certain financial obligations, but it's not talking about a get or parnasuha. Right, loshen parnasa is a siyas sarchehu. Take care of her needs. Knimas Rashi is kechayk lo yadina nichak get ichak mazayin ksus. I'm not sure what exactly taking care of the needs of giving her get or taking care of the needs of giving her foods. Says the Gemara. Tanabah. Let's say shalchuha, send her away, or shavkuha, and then another language of discarding or sending away. Tarchua, Rashi says, lashon tiruchin gerushin, which is the language which is found on the last line of a get. These are languages that constitute a divorce. But you say patruha, parnasua, asula, kanimos, asula, karoi, lomer klum, which is what our Mishnah said. Tanya Rav Nasan Aimer, patruha, if you say the word patruha, davar of kayamin, then in that situation, your words will count. And Rashi says, kamo shalchuha. It has the same din as shalchuha, like to send her away, and therefore the din is that, in fact, it will be a valid get. However, that's when you say patruha. If you say pitruha, lomer klum, very similar language, but pitruha, that doesn't count. Amarava, Rav Nasan dabavlahu, Rav Nasan, who made the statement, who distinguished between patruha and pitruha, comes from Bavel. The daik bein pitruha or patruha. They're very particular in the language, and therefore there's a distinction between those words. Tandididan davar Eretz Yisrael hu lo daik. However, people in Eretz Yisrael were not as particular in these two words, as Rashi, Shemasaprim pamim b'lashon Arami, pamim b'lashon Ivri, Hilkach. Since we speak in different languages, Ki Omer Patrua lashon get. So it's not so clear exactly whether or not it's the same thing. So which turns to question 6. Ezo lashon gerushin shani bein Bavel Eretz Yisrael v'heichin hu moyel beBavel o Eretz Yisrael. So the word patruha, that language, again, so there's patruha, everyone says davar of kayamin. Pitruha, so it's maybe nothing. However, pitruha umoyel bebavel v'lo be'eretz Yisrael. So in Bavel, patruha works. Moyel bebavel v'lo be'eretz Yisrael. So it's interesting. What does that mean? Says Rashi, v'daik bein pitruha patruha she misaprim pamim b'lashon Arami, as we said. So therefore, Hilkach ki Omer Patur Lashon get. However, Eretz Yisrael, already Israel who the Chosi Por Lashon Ivri Lo Daik Bein Patrua. We don't make a distinction between them. V'lav Leget Piturin Achav. And we say it's not a get. So therefore, we see in Bavel Patrua would work. However, in Eretz Yisrael, the word patur will not work. Okay. Iboilhu. The Gemara asks a question. Hoitzihu, if you use the language of hoitzihu, which is like that she should go out, mahu. Azvua, you're forsaken, mahu. Hatiruha, sounds like your mutter, like muter suchaladam, mahu. Hanichuha, mahu. Ho'ilula, mahu. Asula, kedas, mahu. So what are the dinim in all these languages? So pashim miyachada, we can at least answer one. The sanya asula kedas, if you do kedas, asula kenimos, asula karoi, lo omer klom. So we see that in fact this will not be an acceptable language. Ad kan.